The night Rome forgot to mention. Listen closely, 'cause I'm about to take you into a night Rome never wrote down. A night so cold, even the moon looked scared to shine. The wind wasn't blowing. The crickets weren't singing. It was that type of silence that only comes after men die in large numbers. A Roman patrol was moving through the woods, torches shaking in their hands, breath turning white in the air. And then a sound, not loud, not sharp, just a tiny whisper, like the air itself got cut. One soldier froze. Another dropped his torch. And a third fell straight to his knees. A perfect black arrow buried in space. Between his heartbeat and his last breath, he didn't scream. He didn't even blink. He just switched off. That's when the Legion knew they weren't alone in the forest. They were inside the hunting ground of Rome's own invisible ghosts. You ever heard of an army so dangerous that even their own empire hide their name? Rome had one. Not in the books, not in the records, not even whispered inside the Senate. A unit that didn't march, didn't chant, didn't carry banners. They moved like shadows, killed like mathematics, and disappeared like regrets. They were called the Shadow Archers. And trust me, you don't want to know how they were made. See, Rome didn't recruit these men. Rome found them from the places polite society never looks. Orphans from burned villages, hunters who lived so deep in the woods that they forgot what cities smelled like, men with no last names, no records, no family left to bury them. Rome's generals had a simple rule: if the world won't notice you missing, you belong to us. They weren't trained like legionaries. They weren't taught to fight in lines. These were the outsiders, but Rome would forge them into a weapon the world had never seen. To join this ghost unit, you entered the forest alone. No map, no shield, no backup, just a bow and a single arrow. Your task? Hit a small wooden idol, somewhere inside a pitch-black forest, before sunrise. You don't know where it is. You don't know its shape. You don't know its distance. But it's there. If you hit it, you join the shadows. If you miss, well, the forest keeps you. Only 3 out of 70 men returned. And even they didn't return the same. Shadow archers train where sunlight rarely touched the ground. Deep moss, cold dirt, trees thick enough to crush a horse's skull if they fell. Their only teacher was a forest. Their only classroom was suffering. Training drills included shooting while half-starved, running barefoot through frozen mud, aiming while upside down, holding breath until vision blurred, tracking a wolf in pitch darkness, shooting a candle flame without touching the wick. One general once said, if they can hit a flame, they can hit a man's fear. They didn't train the body. They trained the instinct. They became creatures of silence. Their bows weren't normal, either. Rome used what struck by lightning. They believed trees hit by the gods, absorbed divine tension. Whether that's true or not, the bows were vicious. Short range, high velocity, ridiculously accurate. The arrows? Light, thin, deadly, fletching from owl feathers. So the arrows made zero sound. Once the string snapped, you had no warning, only impact. Shadow archers weren't built to kill armies. They were built to kill morale. One arrow, one body. But the effect? Hundreds breaking inside. They didn't target strong men. They targeted the important ones. The cook who kept morale steady. The musician who kept troops marching. The medic whose hands gave hope. They killed the heart of a camp, not its muscles. You can kill a soldier, but if you kill his certainty, his whole army collapses. Shadow archers were psych warfare, long before the term existed. Their first real mission was against the Macedonians, a brutal, organized, heavily armored force. Rome sent 300 men. Macedon had nearly 2,000. By dawn, 41 Macedonians were dead. No cries, no screams, just bodies dropping. As if a curse moved through the camp, the commanders panicked. Shields raised, torches lit, But every defense they chose was wrong. Shields up, arrows came from below. Shield down, arrows came from above. Hide behind trees, arrows curved through the gaps. One officer wrote, "We were not fighting archers. We were fighting the night itself." Shadow archers never aimed at where a man was. They aimed at where a man's fear would take him. If a soldier ducked, the arrow was already waiting. If he ran, the arrow was already there. It felt supernatural, but it was cruel calculation. They read enemy body language, like gamblers reading cards. They shot futures, not bodies. Whenever Rome needed a war, they couldn't win fairly. They sent the shadows, destroying a siege camp at Carthage. A siege nearly broke the Roman line, until one night, the enemy's entire tent row commanders fell silently in minutes. They never found footsteps, never heard strings, just corpses lined perfectly, like someone had drawn a ruler through them, eliminating rebel leaders. When Sicilian rebels rose up, Rome didn't waste a legion. They sent 6 shadow archers. 6 shots, 6 rebel chiefs dead. The rebellion died before it even breathed. Here's the darkest part. Rome didn't allow them to be buried like soldiers. No graves, no honors, no pyres, no names on stone. Rome believed that if you bury a ghost, you give it a chance to be remembered, and the Senate didn't want anybody remembering this secret weapon. So when a shadow archer died, their body was burned quietly, ashes scattered in forests where they once trained. Rome erased them, even in death. Enemies began telling stories that the arrows were cursed, that the archers didn't bleed, that they didn't sleep, that they could hit a man through fog and storm, as if the wind obeyed them. Even Roman soldiers got uncomfortable around them. They never saw their faces, never heard their voices. Some claimed they didn't even cast shadows at night. It wasn't true, but that didn't matter. In war, fear is a weapon, and shadow archers were built entirely out of fear. Every powerful weapon eventually scares its owner. As the shadow archers grew more effective, Rome grew more nervous. Senators whispered, "What if they turn on us? What if they become mercenaries? What if someone steals them?" You can control a legion. You can't control a ghost. So slowly, quietly, politically, Rome started wiping them out, not by battle, by bureaucracy. No food, no pay, no recognition, no support. The shadows faded. One by one, some disappeared into forests. Some became lone hunters. Some were quietly executed for knowing too much. Rome made sure the world forgot them. Even though Rome erased them, their methods didn't die. Medieval assassins copied their tracking tricks. Ottoman archers studied their instinctive shooting. Silent Japanese Kyudo schools used their breath techniques. The world doesn't remember them, but archery does. Every sniper today, every special forces ranger, every hunter who can shoot by feel, they all carry a tiny piece of Rome's invisible killers. Rome built its empire on soldiers people celebrated, but it survived because of soldiers nobody ever knew. The shadow archers didn't win parades, didn't earn medals, didn't get names, didn't even get graves. But every time a Roman general stood victorious on a battlefield, somewhere in the shadows stood the men who made that victory possible. Men who fired arrows that never sang. Men who killed without being seen. Men who Rome itself was afraid to remember. So if you ever walk in a forest at night and you feel a breeze, but no wind around you, just remember, some legends don't die. They just draw their bows a little quieter. If you think this was Rome's darkest secret, you're not even close. Because next, we're going into the story of a weapon so brutal, so cursed, that even the emperors refuse to speak its name. Subscribe, and don't wander alone in the woods tonight.